Peace and Black Power families. Brother Ajay Taimba from Harlem Liberation School, where we teach Black people, as you know by now, to wake up, clean up, and stand up. Well, family, I got to start off with Habari Ghani, family. Habari Ghani. And being that this is the fourth day of Kwanzaa, you would respond Ujama, right? Ujama is the fourth principle of the Nguzu Saba, therefore, it's the fourth principle day of Kwanzaa. And Ujamaa basically refers to cooperative economics. It's kind of an anti-capitalist position. It's saying that we build enterprises that benefit large numbers of the community, that we share our wealth, that we work together, pool our resources, that type of thing. So, hope everyone is enjoying this beautiful Kwanzaa season, family. And if you don't know about it, you're in the best time to be alive, because we have an inundation or flood of information about Kwanzaa. You can go to the official website. You can hear Dr. Maulana Karenga himself give his annual presentation on Kwanzaa and why he created it and what it's about and things of that nature. What I like about it is that it's an anti-materialistic. One of the things, family, and this is a whole nother discussion for a whole nother time, one of the things that has us in retrograde motion, that's become a big impairment in our ability to organize and have really substantial movement, is that we bought into this whole your value is based on what money you bring, the bills you paid, the gifts you got, the family, the car you drive, and nothing could be further from the truth, family. Right? Some of you worship prophets that had no money at all, had no homes, had no belongings to speak of, were in fact nomadic. So it goes against everything. It's not about what you have in your pocket. It's about what you got here and what you got here. But more importantly, what you give to the community. That's the value. And so Kwanzaa is so important to me because it shifts our focus from what did you get and how much did it cost, and get out of that. It shifts it, because most of the time we talk about buying white people's products and buying from white organizations and entities, making them richer and richer anyway. Right? People who despise and reject us. Kwanzaa is saying, you know what? You want to give a gift that's going to matter? Hello. Support our authors. Support our filmmakers. Support our seamstresses. Support our tailors. Support our institution builders. You see, our artists, our musicians. We got our RBG Gumbo mixtape that's out from Team RBG. Shout out to my man Obafemi and other gods, right? So Kwanzaa shifts it and says you can make a gift for Kwanzaa. You don't have to spend any money, and you can still have your dignity as a man and woman. You don't have to feel bad that you couldn't do this, or this one did more than you. It's not. That's not important, because at the end of the day, none of us are free. None of us are liberated, regardless of your degree, your salary, and the gifts that you got and who you got it from. So let me first start there on the righteous note. We need leadership to point our people back to what's really important, man, because it's very easy to get twisted. And now you thinking just like the white man, as you call yourself fighting against the white man. You thinking just like him. So it's very important we have right leadership to correct these sort of fallacies. Family, today, this video, this live broadcast is part of our, to me, very important series. The series is called Is That True? We have a playlist right here on the channel. By the way, make sure, family, that you subscribe to Harlem Liberation School. Don't forget, very important. You see a ticker going by on the bottom. Don't just like it and watch it. Like the comment, like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. Today, part of our series, and you'll see it in the playlist, Is That True? Is where we're questioning statements or phrases or ideas that are very popular, particularly in the Black nationalist and Pan-Africanist community. Why? Because when our leaders wrote their blueprints and left their footsteps in time and left their speeches and their writings and teachings, I don't think their goal was to have us be robots and mimics, people that just go around imitating what they said and what they did, quoting them all the time. I think they gave us the blueprint, understanding that in our day and time, we might have to change up. We might have to adjust some things because there might be things in our day and time that are slightly different from the things that existed when, let's say, Brother Malcolm was around, or Brother Garvey, or Sister Ella Baker, right? So it's important that we challenge and question things, not just go around, Malcolm said, Garvey said, Ella said. Yeah, we know what they said. What do you say? Based on what you see, your study, your research, and the teachings from your elders, and the time we're in right now, what do you see? Because maybe something that was completely applicable in 1959 is not quite as relevant today, or maybe it is. But we need to always have the type of mindset where we're questioning. We're saying, is this right and exact for right now? Does this fit the situation, the terrain that I'm on, right? Because maybe in certain times, it's almost like the metaphor of, in certain cities, having a regular 4-door sedan is good. You go with a 4-door sedan, right? But in other cities, like Ithaca, New York, Syracuse, New York, there's very mountainous, there's gorges, there's snow and ice. You might need a 4-wheel drive SUV in that terrain. So you have to always be thinking about, where am I located politically, culturally, right? And what type of vehicle or tactic or strategy should we employ based on where we are, right? And how our enemy is getting down. So we're questioning today this idea. All we need is boots on the ground work. Yeah, boots on the ground. That's what we need. The rest of that stuff don't even matter, right? I want to get into that. I'm going to be reading some of this because I want to make sure I don't miss anything, family. But I hope you're with me. First, let me start by saying this. For those who don't know, Harlem Liberation School is a political education center. It is not an actual school where little kids come and there's teachers and they graduate and they get promoted and there's a parent association. No, it is not a literal school in that sense. By school, it's a political education center that is schooling the community with respect to Black political education. Our objective, as you probably know by our greeting, Wukusu, is to help Black people wake up, clean up, and stand up, as Brother Malcolm said. How do we do this? We help people wake up, clean up, and stand up by providing the foundational information, the consciousness raising, and the relevant community organizing skills, the things to do and the things to avoid and how to do them, that are important to mounting a successful and powerful and effective liberation and resistance movement. Okay, so let me start there, because people always say, how many students you got in the school? So I do need to clarify that. Now, back to the subject. Throughout my life, and I will say I'm 56 years old now, my father was teaching me what we now call Africana Studies and Black political education and Black studies since I was a little kid. But when I first got actively self-motivated, self-engaged, would have been around 12 or 13 when I read Brother Malcolm, the book on Brother Malcolm's speeches called Malcolm X Speaks. And I said, I'm going to be like this Black man one day. I'm not going to be just like him because we two different people in two different times, but I'm going to take some notes, some pages from his book, his dedication, his sincerity. I'm going to try to be like him and be a servant of our people. So I would say from the age of 12 to 13 to 56, I've been involved in this movement. Sometimes a lot more activist, militant activist, protest mode, sometimes more scholarly, getting advanced degrees in Africana studies and sociology, sometimes more grassroots educator, teacher in the classroom, or school builder, but always somehow involved in the Black liberation movement for all of my adult life and most of my life in general. Now, having said that, throughout my life, I've heard this quote, we need boots on the ground. You're doing all that talking, all that. We need people on the ground doing this work. Right? And some people, by the way they say it, they almost imply That boots on the ground work is the only important liberation work. And the purpose of this particular broadcast is to determine whether this sentiment is true. Is it true that all we need is boots on the ground work, and that's the only work that's important in a liberation or resistance movement? Right? Now, first and foremost, I want to provide some terms to define some terms. What is the origin of the phrase? Right? That's important. Where does this phrase come from? Right? Boots on the ground. Did you ever think about that? Where that phrase, that terminology comes from? Well, it's a military term, family. It's the white man's term, very specifically. And it's a military term referring to, being at war, the actual army, the infantry, the actual people that's in combat fighting. We need boots on the ground. We need fighters. We need people to be engaged right there at the scene where the action is, the action being the actual combat. We need boots on the ground, right? But when we talk about community organizing or liberation movements, boots on the ground has a slightly different interpretation. It refers to hands-on efforts in liberation movements. The protesting, canvassing the community, making those phone calls, knocking on those doors, holding those weekly meetings, right? Getting people out to our meetings, rallying and organizing, sometimes marches and distributing food and resources to our people. This work is indispensable, family. You can't have a movement without that type of work. And often it's the type of work we think of when we think of a liberation movement. You think, oh yeah, we're going to food programs, feeding the people, rallies, marches, meetings, protests. These are the things you think about, right? When you think of a movement, a resistance movement. And it's where we connect directly with the people. When we say boots on the ground, you're connecting directly with the people. You're agitating. You're literally feeding and protecting the people. You might have things like community patrols. That's protecting particular neighborhoods and things of this nature, making sure that our little girls and boys aren't being abducted and things of that nature. People refer to those type of activities under the umbrella of boots on the ground. That you right where the action's at, you with the people, that type of thing. But is this the only important work? Is this the only work that we should support and help to populate? The short answer, family, is no. And this is why. Let's start with this. Every successful liberation movement operates like a well-oiled machine. It has many moving parts, family. Not one, a lot of different parts. And I want to take us through a few of the critical, crucial types of work that we do, in liberation movements, particularly in the Black liberation movement. Give me a minute, get some coffee. So what's one type of work that may not be considered boots on the ground? Oh, and before I get there, let me say this. Since it's a military terminology, boots on the ground, let's think of a real military scenario. United States goes and invades somebody's country because it's an imperialist enterprise, as we know. So when they go and invade a country, do they do that just with arms, with guns and tanks and missiles? Certainly not. Before they even get there, they have intelligence. They gather information about the African nation or the diasporan nation that they're trying to invade and occupy. Do they not? They want to know how many people are there. What is their capacity to fight back? Are they armed? Are they organized militarily? What is their government? What type of government? Is it socialist? Is it democratic socialist? Is it, Republican? All these different things they want to know. They get information. And then they might say, oh, there's beef. So what we're going to do? We're going to support the side that's closer to the type of government we want, that's going to help us get their gold, oil, and diamonds out of their country. That's the side we're going to support. So what do? They start giving what? Gifts. Just like you give at Christmas. But these gifts would be things like, you know what? If you guys help us to get some gold, oil, and diamonds out of your country, we're going to give you money. We're going to give you transportation vehicles. We're going to give you weapons. We're going to give you access to our propaganda machine. Get your side of your point of view in the newspapers and the news media all over the world. Right? Okay. So there's that. They may have people who simply make weapons. They don't shoot a weapon. They don't touch a weapon. They're not in any type of military campaign, but they help to make the weapons. So I can go on with this for 10 minutes. The point is, even if you take a strict military point of view, there's many more roles involved in a wartime scenario than just the actual infantry, the actual men and women, boots on the ground that are shooting at the enemy, family. We need to be clear, because I think some people mean well, but I think people are giving, particularly the young activists and organizers, the wrong impression. And it's very important we be clear. We can say things like, no matter what type of work we're doing, it's important we also have boots on the ground. Absolutely right. We got to have boots on the ground. You can't just be gathering intelligence. You can't just be making weapons. You can't just be doing the news. You got to have people doing the fighting. So absolutely right. But it is not accurate or responsible to say it's the only or the most important. I wouldn't even give ranks like that. All of the work is important. So let's now go to our liberation movement. I said we have different moving parts. Let's look at some of them. And as we're answering the question, is boots on the ground work in the Black Liberation Movement the only important work? I told you the answer from Harlem Liberation School is no, it is not. And this is why. Let's talk about ideological work. We need thinkers, educators, and scholars to develop and disseminate ideas that are revolutionary. Right? As Brother Malcolm said, of all our studies, history is best qualified to reward our research. Ideological clarity helps us define what are our goals. Who is our enemy? How does our enemy operate? What are his weapons? What are his tactics? What is his objective? Right? We need the scholarship that defines all that, helps us understand all that, and helps to keep our movement grounded and informed with accurate information. So we need the scholars and the teachers, right? Yeah. We also need strategic planning. So that means we need tacticians and planners to help us develop actionable steps, things that we, not just theory, but theory that we can apply practically. Timelines, measurable outcomes. The Montgomery bus boycott, for example, was very successful because of the meticulous, methodical planning behind the scenes. The stuff that you would not consider boots on the ground. People in meeting rooms with coffee and donuts, staying up for hours until early in the morning, debating who should lead the Montgomery Improvement Association. How long should the bus boycott be? How do we deal with the fact that there's people that may live 20 miles away from their house? We're asking them not to take the bus. How are they going to get to their job and back and support their families, right? All of those things are being hammered out. Those strategies and tactics are being developed behind the scenes. It's not boots on the ground work, but yet that boycott would not have been successful without that work. So that's the strategic planning piece. Then there's the economic work, right? So whether it's creating self-sustaining economies, fundraising to support certain operations or initiatives, we need people focused who all they do is focus on what the white man calls development, securing and managing money and resources. So, for example, Harlem Liberation School had a fundraiser through GoFundMe for Ababa Dhoruba bin Wahad. Those of you who don't know, he is a 19-year political prisoner. He was a Black Panther Party leader here in New York City, and he was a co-founder of the Black Liberation Army. And he unfortunately is dealing with 4th stage cancer. So he has expensive medical costs, and he kind of lives between here and a particular country in Africa. So in hearing him talk about his situation, this and that, we decided we're going to do a fundraiser. We did a $10,000 fundraiser. Not only did we raise all $10,000, but we kept it open so people are still contributing to Baba Dhoruba bin Wahad. And this is important. Why? Because he's 80 years old. He's not working a job, right? He's not getting governmental benefits, family. So he's a revolutionary, right? So that money helps him to survive. Is that not important? Sure it is. Is it boots on the ground? No. See, I want us to complicate and make sure we're not participating in oversimplified thinking. That we're not just saying things because our teacher told us that, and because we read it here and we saw it in this documentary. Like, we gotta always, when we hear things, we gotta say, I get what they're trying to say. They're saying this is important. Is it the only thing important? No. Every military role, if you want to use the military context, which is where the phrase comes from, or if you want to use the community organizing, liberation movement context, activism is not the only role. Serving food to people is not the only important role. We need schools and other things, right? Okay. So we talk about economic work. What about the cultural work? Culture shapes consciousness and it inspires and educates people. So our musicians, our poets, our filmmakers inspire people to dream of freedom, to thirst for their liberation, and to imagine new possibilities, to say, you know what? This is going to be difficult, not going to be easy, but it's doable. And more importantly, we deserve to be free. We got the right to be free. Culture helps people to make that connection and to see the words we speak, the things we write, the clothes we wear, the way we greet each other, the education we receive as very important to our liberation movement. And on top of that, the cultural custodians, the cultural workers in the community, they help to preserve and promote our history and our values. They help to define, when we run around here talking about we hating on this or that, they say, well, you know, that is completely within not only Black culture, but continental African culture. They may have seen it a little differently, but the thing that you're beating on so much is a quintessential part of our culture that's good, our current and our ancient culture. So you might want to rethink that, right? You might want to rethink the stuff that you're echoing from your enemy is alien to our culture and is in fact part of the enemy's culture. And in fact, the enemy used that to oppress us. So the cultural custodians are the people who remind us of who we are, whose we are, where we come from, our views, values, and our priorities. Because this is, like I said, with Christmas, you can get it real twisted. You got Black people out here acting straight up European, family, when Christmas comes, right? All right. Technological and media work. Not boots on the ground, but extremely important, right? So we're here in what they call the digital age, the inundation of information. You can get your iPhone, hey Siri, when did the Thriller album come out? Who made it? It'll come right up. It'll tell you all the facts you need to know, right? So right now we're not starved. We're not in a famine as it relates to getting information. We have it all around. In fact, probably too much of it. So this means we need people in our movements that know how to use technology to amplify our message, to counter misinformation, and to reach global audiences. You know, back in the day when we wanted people to come to our rallies, family, we took a white blank piece of printer paper, wrote, we're meeting in the student center at 12:30 noon, be there, and copied it about 200 to 500 times, and we went out around the campus and passed them out, or in the community, and we passed it out, and people came. Today, You could type that up in 5 seconds, put it on your Instagram or your TikTok or your whatever you're using, and you can reach people in a fraction of the time, the same amount and even more people all over the world in a fraction of the time. So we need people that have that type of technical savvy to be able to manipulate these platforms, these technologies on our behalf. And speaking of that, we need people to understand that artificial intelligence, family, and know how to use it for us. Right? Now, let's also talk about the interdependence of roles in the movement. And here's the key point I want to make with this. Liberation work, resistance work, nation building work is collective, family. No one role is more important than another. They all feed into the larger movement. So I've said this a billion times. You probably heard this a billion times, and you may have said it a billion times. If you look at the human body, you got liver, you got kidneys, you got heart, intestines, small and large, right? Lungs. Imagine if any one of those organs was to think they were the most important. Imagine if you're a doctor, you come in with some type of, you pass out and they're going and they're doing x-rays. And imagine if they were not clear on the interdependence of those organs, that all of them are important. Right? They don't go just throwing the heart out. They don't go just take it, oh, we're just going to take the lungs out. No, they know all of these things are important. We got to diagnose exactly what the problem is. And to the degree that we can preserve all the organs, we're going to preserve all of them because they're all important. So when you start getting into what's more important or least important, that's almost a false argument. Because the truth is, in a liberation movement, all of these different roles, some of which I've named, are all important. So we should get out of this privileging just what we do. That's like if you hear me, because I'm big, obviously big on education and community organizing. If I'm like, oh no, we don't need engineers, we don't need, right, doctors and lawyers, and we just need teachers. Oh, we need a teachers. We don't need no construction workers, none of that. We just need teachers. Why? I'm saying that because that's what I do. We can't do that, fam. We have to tell people the truth. We need everything that a nation needs, period. And a nation don't just have military, family. They got postal workers. They got people that run TV and newspapers and radio stations. They have people that lay down the roads. They got people that take care of sanitation. They have doctors, family. We need to broaden our scope on what we need as a nation of people, what we need in a resistance movement. So the interdependence of roles means the protester that's holding up that sign, no more police brutality, the person yelling in that bullhorn, I'm black and I'm proud, a people united will never be defeated, right? And the strategist that's in the back room with the coffee and donuts early in the morning, trying to figure out the best way to move and who to include and how we communicate, are all important. They're all vital to our movement. The scholar that's developing or teaching liberation theories and strategies, the artist that's creating these motivational pieces of art, the revolutionary hip-hop artists and poets, right? The authors, the filmmakers, the counselors or the healers, the social workers, the editors, the bloggers. They're equally important because they're equally necessary. The movement, without any one of those important roles, would not be the same, would not have the same vigor, and would not have the same power. And when we understand this, family, when we understand this, we dismantle this false hierarchy that places boots on the groundwork at the top, and it kind of undervalues other contributions. Our liberation, and we must understand this. This should be political education 101. This should be one of the first lessons we teach in young activists. There's not one role. There's not one job. There's not one responsibility when it comes to Black liberation. There are several. And our liberation demands a diversity of skills, approaches, and talents, family. Very important we get particularly our younger activists and organizers to really wrap their minds around that, because then we will stop isolating people, dismissing people who we don't think are important because they don't do what we do. We got to stop that. That's a certain level of arrogance that liberation movements really can't entertain, right? So I want to challenge you, family. I want to challenge you to identify your unique skills, your gifts, the things that come natural to you, the things you do well, the things you love doing, the things you do all the time anyway, and figure out how your gifts and your skills and your talents fit into the broader Black liberation movement and struggle. Are you a writer, an artist, educator, organizer, self-defense specialist? You may be a martial artist. You may be a person that's trained in firearms. Are you an attorney? Are you a healer, a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist? Are you a tech-savvy innovator? Whatever your role is, find a way to make it relevant to our liberation movement, because we need you, family. We can't afford to be throwing new Africans and Black people away just because they're not right in the community serving food. There's a whole lot more roles we need them to play. And also, let's support each other's efforts. Respect the boots on the ground workers, but also respect the strategists, the fundraisers, and the cultural workers. And you also have philanthropists, family. You got people in revolutions, they don't ever touch a weapon. They don't receive military training. They're never on the battlefield. All they do is give money to support the movement. You see? So we have to broaden our understanding of movements, resistance movements, liberation movements. So we understand that the roles are multiple roles, and stop beating people over the head because they're not out there knocking on doors and doing the stuff you think is boots on the ground. And by the way, did we talk about doctors and nurses? Yes, they're important to our liberation movement. I don't hear anybody talking about them. Hospitals, is that boots on the ground? I don't know, but it's important. Respect the boots on the ground workers, but also the strategists, the fundraisers, the cultural workers. Our strength is not in everybody doing the same thing, family. That's weakness. Our strength is in the fact that we have so many different people who can do so many different things. Unity in our diversity. Unity without uniformity is our strength. And when we privilege one role in our movement, we dismiss and invalidate all these other very important roles and responsibilities. And that's the long answer to the question. Is it true that all we need is boots on the ground work in the Black liberation movement? No, it is not true. Straight up. And I just gave you good argumentation for why it's not. Now, just to make sure nobody leaves here and says, IJ said that it's not important, I want to be very clear. Boots on the ground work, if by that we mean people that's having those rallies, the protests, challenging the police and the big institutions that are mistreating us, absolutely necessary. Feeding the people, absolutely necessary. So I want to be clear. Boots on the ground work is a metaphor, because I told you in the beginning, this comes from the military, from the white man's military. And it meant the infantry, the people that's doing the actual combat, the fighting, boots on the ground. That's right where the action is, the fight. But even in their military sense, you had people that were spies, that were getting information, that were making weapons in factories. They never went on the field and fought, family. So if you can understand that, you can understand what I'm saying. All I'm saying is, in our zeal, in our effort to say we need people in the hood, knocking on doors, calling, emailing, getting people out to meetings, protesting, feeding the people, don't make it seem like that's all the only thing that is important, because it is not. A political movement, resistance movement, a liberation movement needs at least 10 different types of people, at least at last count, right? And that's all we're trying to say. We're trying to get you to broaden your perspective, right? And the Queen is saying to those of you watching live and those who watch the later recorded version, she's saying Wukusu to the family. That's Harlem Liberation School's greeting, which is an acronym for Brother Malcolm told us we should do. Wake up, clean up, stand up, Wukusu. Now, family, I'm getting ready to end, I want to know, are there any questions, any comments? You're free to agree, disagree, talk about some other issues that this conversation has made you think about. Maybe this made you think differently about some things. Maybe you think I missed something. I'd like to hear your comments or your questions. I'm going to give a few minutes to talk about that. As I also bring up, while we're doing that, I'm going to try to bring something up because I want you to know, family, that I'm hosting a sale of sorts. Hold on. Let's see if I could bring it up for you. As I wait to see if there's any comments or questions, I'm going to bring something up so you can see it. Hold on 1 second. All right, so right now you should see on my my Facebook page a post that I put up a few days back. So family, I've written 6 books. I'm offering 4 of those books at a discounted rate, but what I've done is I've broken them up into bundles of 2 books each. Pardon the outside noise, family. You know, it is what it is in the hood, right? One of the bundles is called an empowerment bundle. Those are books that are dealing specifically with self-empowerment, maybe from the for adults, and one that's dealing with teens. So in the empowerment bundle, which you get for $25, you get both books for a total of $25. And as you know, a book alone could cost you $25, right? You'll get both books. Wukusu, or Self-Empowerment Handbook, is the one I've written most recently that targets our adults mostly, but I think younger people can read it as well. And then I wrote a book for teens called Truth for Our Youth, a self-empowerment book for teens. Those young people on the cover, and the time that picture was taken, were in high school, but those are some of the original students that were in the school that myself and Baba Richard Tanko helped to start, to create back in the year 2000. I also have a leadership bundle. Those are 2 books that deal specifically with leadership. That you get both of those books for a total of $33. As you know, one book could cost $33. If you've ever done some book shopping on Amazon or going to the local bookstore, you see books can cost, right? The first book is a comprehensive leadership philosophy, ethics, and practice. Very comprehensive. Something that if you had a grassroots organization, you would get it and have copies, and it would be required reading for your members, but especially for your officers of your organization, so they can understand the basic ins and outs, right, of what leadership is, how leadership thinks, the objectives of leadership, some of the pitfalls or things you need to be aware of in terms of leadership, some of the things you should not, absolutely not do as it relates to being a good leader. And the book after that, the Blueprint of BSU Handbook, is for a specific type of leadership, but I believe grassroots organizations benefit from that too. That book, you see me on the cover yelling at the police back in 1989. That book was written specifically for our Black students on college campuses, right, that are doing protests and sit-ins and all types of taking over buildings and then whatever else we're doing. This is to teach them how to organize effectively and successfully. Nobody wants to give a whole year or a whole 10 months of school time in college fighting university and losing and getting kicked out of school on top of it, right? You want to be able to fight, mount your fight, do your studies, and at the end of the day, be successful, get your demands met. And that book will show you how to do that. So as you see here, family, and you can go to my Facebook page and see the same thing. You can buy the empowerment bundle for $25 all together, the leadership bundle for $33. Do remember, though, that you will have to add $5 for shipping, because what happens here is I'll have to get them from the warehouse, sign them for you, then I'm going to package them and reship them to you. So it takes a little longer, maybe another week, maybe another 12 days. longer than usual, but also you'll have a sign, 2 sign books from me, right? So you support me, but you also are getting, as I say in this digital flyer, relevant and actionable information at the same time. So it's not just about supporting me. You're getting something that's of value too. And you might gift it to someone in your family or what have you. So just want to throw that in because this is a Kwanzaa. We're doing this in honor of Kwanzaa to support our people getting books, gifts that don't cost an arm and a leg. You ain't got to go into debt to gift your family and your friends. That's why I'm talking about it, family. And that's my beautiful, lovely queen. She's saying she recommends every book. She says that Truth for Our Youth, Wukusu, and the leadership books are life altering. Thank you for that, Queen. I appreciate that. So, family, I'm not going to take up any more time. Thank you for listening. Remember, boots on the ground work in our liberation movement is indispensable and invaluable. We need it. But those are not the only types of work and roles we need in our movement. We need a whole lot of things. I'm not going to repeat it in our movement. And it's very important that we appreciate that. So we're not making people who don't do boots on the ground work. Like, oh, I'm not necessary. So I don't need to teach. I don't need to start a school. I don't need to write. I don't need to create films. I don't need to do this revolutionary hip hop. No, we want to bring all the community. You got a gift that we can make relevant to this struggle. Bring it. Come on, let's bring it. The more of us, the merrier. Assuming that what you're doing is relevant to the project of Black liberation. With that said, family, thank you. Peace and Black power. As the Queen says, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe right now, family. Push that red button on your screen and subscribe. Spread the word. Wukusu, family. Happy Kwanzaa. We will see you soon. Peace and Black power.